Okay, we're live.
Word. What up, fam?
Good morning, everybody. Ooh, we have 4 viewers.
Whoa! Tight.
Who's here? Oh, we dropped down to 2.
Oh, man. Ugh. Ooh. Jared Baxter, what up, fam?
Oh, Jared, I love you, but go away. Get out of here, doctor. I know you're bored. That's a former student of mine who is graduating from medical school, or supposed to be graduating from medical school here
Mm-hmm.
soon. And then start his residency, so he's got some time off before he really gets busy.
Nice.
uh,
I'm jelly. I wish I was a doctor.
no, you don't.
You're right.
I know I couldn't do it.
Nah, for real. My sisters, 3 of them are nurses, and I think they're um, stressed out recently.
Yeah, a little, I'm sure. Hmm.
Hashtag. Who's even
Who
here?
else? It's probably all former students and no current students. That's kind of day I'm having, I think.
Yeah. Ooh. Hmm. Man,
Man,
I really like this story. I was excited to talk about it and reading people's responses to the questions. I think it would have got heated if this was in class. Like,
really?
yeah, just so many different opinions about so many different things. And then their uh like writing prompt is just like come up with your own dystopia. Those were off the hook. Like, I want to read these books. Who
Kennedy, who's the mouse whisperer?
that?
Mouse whisperer?
Who could that be?
I don't know that I want to know
Yeah.
that. Who would be the mouse? I'm gonna go get more coffee before we start.
Word up. Oh, excuse me. How'd y'all like the story? Jack. What oh, yeah. I get it. What's up, Jack? How are ya? Ooh. Oh, I got an idea. Mm. Nah. Where did it go? That guy Jay. Who's that guy Jay? Hello. Fantastic. What's everybody listening to? What's your favorite song during the quarantine? Did you know that Bob Dylan put out a 17-minute long song about the assassination of JFK? Oh, what up, Jermaine? I haven't listened to it yet, but I probably won't either. Ooh, I'm gonna get coffee too.
All right, who's here? Let's see. Jack. Hi, Jermaine. Um, Jack Anderson.
Miss Connors,
Yeah,
did you listen to Bob Dylan's new song about the JFK assassination?
I did
Me
not.
neither. It's 17 minutes long.
Oh,
I heard it's not very good too. So I
really?
guess you can't win a Nobel Prize in literature and then keep going forever.
I don't know. I guess so. I'm Jack Pullen. Better not be Jack Pullen.
How bizarre.
Oh my God. Jack Pullen, go away. Another former student. Go away.
What if he read the story and wants to talk about it?
He didn't read the
Oh,
story.
well then, go on, get.
Although I'm sure he'd probably love to talk about it, but he's supposed to be working from home right now.
Oh, doing some time theft, I guess.
And I can hear him laughing right now too. I mean, like in my
Yeah,
head, I can hear him chuckling.
that's unethical.
All right.
Unethical workmanship.
He'll probably say, "I'm on a break.
Oh yeah.
I'm taking lunch. Time is owed. I don't know. Personal time. Something." He'll have a reason.
Fair.
All right. Shall we go ahead and get
Yeah,
started?
let's do it.
All
Ugh.
right. Go.
We uh so I asked everybody for this story to summarize it in 1 to 3 sentences. And a lot of people did a very good job. I thought it was a super complicated story to try and summarize that quickly, that shortly, but a lot of people did it. Um, which great job. I wrote mine. I wrote it down somewhere. Um, so let's see, Miss Connors, you can tell me if you agree with me if I did it justice.
Okay.
Let's see. All right, summary. Juan sends a letter to Mariana, but he is afraid it will be intercepted by the government censors. So, knowing that it will take a while for his letter to get through the system, he gets a job working for the censors, and through hard work and taking his job seriously, moves up the ladder until he is one of the lead censors. It's at this time he receives the letter that he wrote, and being the great censor that he is, turns himself in to be executed because of what he wrote in the letter.
That is a really detailed summary. But yes, you captured the story.
Yeah, it was very hard to even get it like to get all the information in there like shortly with and it still ended up being that long and that complex. Like I think that says a lot about this story. Like it's only 2 pages, but there's so much in there that it's
Yeah.
wild. Um I love this story. Yeah, I don't think it's like the best thing to be reading right now, maybe, but
Yeah, we were talking about that before we went live, guys. We were talking about how Mr. Elster is really enjoying it in the current climate, and I did not enjoy the story in the current climate because with everything going on in the world, and I don't know, it got a little dark,
yeah, a little too
and
real.
I a little too real, and there's too much real stuff going on in the world right now that I can't ignore. And I like to live in a nice, happy world and society. And yeah,
Yeah.
definitely too real for my sense of. well, calm right
Right.
now.
Um, excuse me. So, I guess we could go through it in a little bit more detail. Juan is just like this dude. Oh shoot, I'm sorry. Well, I guess along those lines is the background information, um, which
Yeah.
there's a little bit in the story that I shared, talking about kind of broadly dictatorships and censorships, and then just like Latin America in general, which is where Luisa Valenzuela is from. Um, I have a little bit more information just about going to the background. Um, there was a thing in Argentina called the Dirty War, which began 2 years after Valenzuela returned and continued until 1983. It was a period of brutal military rule. Thousands of people were killed, and as many as 30,000 people were disappeared. Um,
Oh,
yeah, and some of those victims were activists, but most were just ordinary people. Family members of many of the disappeared continue to petition the government for information about their fate, and continue to not very really get too much information. And
even to this
yeah,
day.
yeah, it's
Wow.
wild. Um, there's a I'm not gonna get super deep into like Argentina's history, I guess, because there's a lot, and it can be very, very complicated, and I don't understand enough of it to even talk about it other than what I read surrounding this story. So yeah, that's a super interesting topic if anybody wants to keep looking into it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, just knowing the background historically of being in a dictatorship and having a government that would censor everything that you use to communicate is just so mind-boggling. Like, I sent a letter earlier this week, and I'm imagining A, how long it would take for that letter to be received, but B, like, I was talking about the virus, corona, and I was just like talking about things that could be taken the wrong way, I suppose, if there was the wrong dictator or the wrong censor in place, because I was questioning whether or not we were doing enough, as a society, and was doing enough to keep it from
Hmm.
spreading. And so I imagine if we had a dictatorship that was censoring our mail, mine would not go through because I was questioning the government.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, that's what's wild about like the story. I love it. It's very like sparse on details, but it says a whole lot. Like what you were saying, you could just be like, I don't know, like that's pretty innocent of like, I don't know if, we're doing enough. Maybe they should shut down whatever, or um not let people go anywhere unless it's to get food or something. Which, for
Yeah.
all we know, is what Juan sent to Mariana. It's like all we know is that he really, really loved her, and whatever he wrote in it could be construed as like critiquing the government or being a spy or something like that. Like Luisa never tells us what's in it, just that.
Yeah. But they even say there's one little sentence or comment in the story, if I remember correctly, where it said he knew that there was nothing that he had written that had bad
Hmm.
intentions, but everything can
Hmm.
get misconstrued.
Yeah, because with the censorship is like a heightened sense of paranoia, where it's like, well, this could mean something like uh what like just a random words like, oh, he said love too many times, that probably means he has a bomb or something.
Yeah. Yeah, or there's a secret message hidden in the words that he's
Hmm.
choosing, or that he even talks about how like a watermark or a stain, an ink stain on the paper might be misconstrued as a hidden
Yeah.
message. And I can't imagine trying to live that way and be that paranoid and not go
Yeah.
crazy.
Like it reminds me of uh like Nazi Germany before like the war actually started. It was like they had a like saying, it was see something, say something. Like if anybody's acting suspicious, make sure you turn them in because you don't want to be the guy who didn't when something bad actually happens. Um, and yeah, just like making everybody paranoid so that anything can mean anything. It's frightening.
Yeah, but I mean, I've heard that slogan being used before, that exact same slogan being used more
Yeah.
recently. Um, it is literally the slogan of the school district um, for their, how do I call it? When they're concerned about staff members being too close to
Hmm.
students, literally the slogan is if you see something, say
Yeah.
something.
And like it's a good thing. Like it I
It can
yeah,
be.
yeah. If yeah, you're actually looking for, something like that, or like on the Navy base I was stationed at, they had signs that read that everywhere because like military bases get targeted all the time. So if you see anything
Hmm.
suspicious, if you see like a backpack or something on the uh, sidewalk that shouldn't be there, yeah, you probably should do something. But when it turns into a creeping paranoia of like societal, uh, how do I even say it? Just like insanity of everybody looking at the little tiny things that aren't anything.
Well, and it's a lack of
Yeah.
trust that kind of also gets to me a little bit, just because I want to believe in the good in
Hmm.
people. And that type of paranoia and that type of thinking directly leads to you not trusting people no matter what. And so it's this conflict in who I am, as far as I want to trust people, but I also know I can't trust
Right.
people.
Yeah, you want to be a good neighbor, but you don't want to be be fooled by a bad neighbor.
Yeah,
Huh. But yeah, so as we keep going, this turn is obviously I think comical in just like the like it feels like a sitcom to me, just like this a sitcom strategy to succeed is like, well, the only way to not get in trouble for this is to get a job being a censor and then I'll be okay and it'll take forever, but I'll move on up. Like it just seemed very slapstick and like just funny to
yeah,
me of like, why is that a good idea? But
agree.
yeah, that's what he does. He gets a job at the censorship bureau and he says like they're not very selective about who they choose. It's not uh uh there's no crazy background check, there's no nothing. And like that just remind
It's not a high after job
yeah,
either,
yeah.
apparently.
Um yeah, cuz like that just made me think of uh the TSA and airport security. Someone brought this up in their um questions for this story of like um, who are they to go through your stuff that's your private stuff, and is like, yeah, this is kind of like the TSA of like they're just there not really doing a whole lot but like making you feel safe somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a term for it, it's called security theater, where you you put things in place that aren't necessarily effective, but look like you're doing something. So it makes people feel safer. Uh, and
Huh.
yeah, I've heard the TSA described as that. This censoring the letters kind of is reminiscent of that because like obviously like the government doesn't care who they hire, they don't really care how good of a job they do, but they're doing it to like make themselves feel safe to say that they're doing something.
Yeah. That makes me get like start thinking about security systems in businesses and in schools and whether or not they're truly effective
Hmm.
and see and then that takes me down a road that I don't want to go
Yeah,
down because then I get super negative and start like thinking bad thoughts and I don't like
right.
that.
I, yeah, no, and it's scary. It's weird. It really makes you reconsider like what you do. Like I think we talked about it like last week or maybe the week before, like car alarms. Was that us?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
like that's the same kind of thing. Like you hear a car alarm and you don't do anything.
Yeah, you're just like whatever, somebody's alarm's going
Hmm.
off. Shut that thing off.
Yeah, I feel like this is along those lines.
Yeah,
Uh,
agreed.
but getting back to it, Juan, he does a really great job. He finds all the hidden meetings and everything, and gets people arrested, and just slowly but surely moves his way on up until um, he's like the chief censorer. He's one of the
Yep.
top guys to where he's like the last line of defense. He's super up there. He doesn't get very many letters because not very many make it to him. Uh,
Mhm.
and finally, the letter he wrote that made it through all of the other censors, that one of the very few that actually make it through, he gets and discovers some hidden message that he was sending to his own girlfriend, and being the loyal patriot, the honest censor worker he is, he turns himself in and is executed the next day.
Yeah, and that just blew my
Yo,
mind because I'm like, he already flat out said that he didn't have any sort of covert messages in the letter, and he didn't have any ulterior motives when he sent it. But then when the letter gets to him and he's been through so much brainwashing, on as far as what's good and what's evil and what's secretive and what's a hidden message, um, then he freaks out at a letter that he like
he got the job for.
he got the job for to make sure the letter could go through because it didn't have a hidden message, but now he's finding hidden messages and I'm like, "Really?"
Yeah, like excuse me. Like I think about this when like especially when I was writing songs when I was in a band, like I would just kind of throw down whatever I was thinking at the time, just like, oh, that rhymes, whatever, that sounds cool. And then like one of my friends, they were usually in another band or something, they would be like, man, that song really hit me hard, man, that part about uh da 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 da, that just it's so deep. It was like, no, man, I was just kind of sad that day.
Yeah. I just really thought the line sounded
Yeah,
cool, so I put it in there.
literally, it doesn't mean
And
anything.
you're yeah. But that's what you do, like, you find favorite songs and stuff, and you do research on the songs, and you think you interpret it one way, and the author, the writer of the song totally has a different interpretation of it, and you're like, "Oh,
Huh. Yeah,
okay."
but like that's why I love like literature, because you can make anything mean anything you want as long as you can back it up with some kind of evidence. But
Yeah, absolutely.
um
Absolutely.
yeah, I love it. um so this is like, I don't know if I've said it, the word, but this is an example of satire, and
Mm,
which I didn't catch right away. my first time reading it, it was just like, oh dang, what a twist! I didn't even put it together that this was like, yeah, a very effective piece of satire. Satire, the definition of it, it's the use of humor, irony, exaggeration, or ridicule to expose and criticize people's stupidity or vices, particularly in the context of contemporary politics and other topical issues.
So then the question becomes, what was it what was it ridiculing? And the answer goes back to the whole history that's going on in this culture
Mm.
of the dictatorship and the censorship and all of that. It's basically mocking that
Hmm.
as being pointless.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, it's just like, um, yeah, it just makes fun of the whole thing of um, yeah, like honest, good people who are just trying to make it through, um, doing what they can to survive, and then ultimately uh, becoming part of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I this is something I've personally been dealing with, of just like, how do I want to continue living my life? Like, I want to be a really good teacher who is there for kids who really need it. But then in like my search for employment, it was like, but like, if a super rich private school wanted to hire me, why not?
Mhm.
But then that just but like, you can say like, oh, like I'll get some experience and then I'll be even better teacher when I go back and help the kids who really need it. And then 10 years later you're like, oh no, I can't leave because this is all I know. Like,
Yeah. No.
maybe that's complicated, but like, oh, it's very complicated. I just, yeah, it's a lot of this. Reading this really made me think of that, because like, he wasn't necessarily pro government when he got the job. He was just looking out for himself. But in doing that, and trying to look out for himself on his way up, how many people did he get killed or jailed because of something he suspected was treasonous or against the government and whatever they were writing, uh, until, yeah, you don't even.
He became part of the
Hmm.
problem.
Yeah.
He was looking for a solution, but he became part of the
Yeah,
problem.
that's really scary to me, of like wanting to do something good and then ending up doing something terrible, you know? Like, intentions, what you mean to do is important, but what actually happens, I think, is more important.
Yeah. And that gets really deep, and we've gotten really deep
Yeah.
today. Woo!
Gosh. That, I mean, dang.
And we're not even to the comic yet.
No, yeah. Like, I mean, I think that's why I love stories like this, because like, yeah, you can take them to the big worldly view of like, oh man, government censorship is bad. Like, yeah, but then you bring it down, make it, put the magnifying glass on your own life and what you can do. So, and it makes the story mean even more, at least to me.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And sometimes I don't want that.
Yeah, fair. Yeah. Like, yeah, I totally agree, and I can see that.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a mature point of view or a mature way of handling things, but sometimes that's just my take on things.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, I think that's why we like to like read books and stuff that are very different from our own lives, so that we could get taken away into. Hmm.
Escapism.
And there's,
Yeah, that's totally
yeah.
me.
Well, should we talk about the cartoon then?
Yes, let's switch to the
Sweet.
cartoon.
I hope everybody read it. It was just like a comic strip, graphic novel, graphic.
graphic
graphic
representation.
short story. Yeah. Of have you read either of those books, 1984 or Brave New World?
Read
Read
both,
both.
but it has been a long
Mm-hmm.
time. Like I read them both in AP English when I was a senior in high school.
Gotcha. Yeah, I read 1984 for the first time while I was in the Navy, I think. I'm pretty so like 2016, and then I read Brave New World. Uh, yeah, my senior year in high school as well. So 10 years ago. Um, both of them are two of my favorite books. I love them.
Yeah, I remember loving both of them, but I couldn't really like I can't really tell you much about them
Hmm.
now because it's been long and I've read so many things in between
Totally.
that. But yeah, I have read them. I did find the comic, and I keep calling it a comic, even though it wasn't comedic. But I'm because of lack of a better
Right.
expression, I'm going to call it. So reading the comic kind of makes me want to go back and reread them,
Yeah.
um, to see what my take would be on those books now,
Hmm.
and what I would whether I would agree with the message that Huxley was saying or the message that Orwell was saying.
Right. And like I think um I don't think like this author Stuart McMillan, whose book the comic was based off of, he at the end of it he makes the argument that Brave New World was more correct. I
Mhm.
think they're both a hundred
Yeah.
percent right. Like, and we
Yeah.
could go into it, but I guess I'll give like a brief overview of both of
Yeah.
them. Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I think it was written in like the 30s.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean it was a long time ago. Either the 30s or 40s, I want to say. Um, is about the a future society um, where there's different like genetic classes of people. Like the alphas are uh, the superior people, and then there's like betas who are the workers, and then deltas who are like the lowest of the low. And um, the world that these people live in, um, they are easily distracted. Like the government, the society encourages everybody to take drugs and like get into wild sex parties and just keep themselves distracted with just about anything. Uh, and then we follow the main character. He's getting kind of disillusioned by everything, and then they end up like on like a native Indian reservation, and people who the reservation is like totally outside of the world, and then it gets into that story and how the main character reacts to that. Uh, it's very very good. I like that book a whole lot. Um, and then
But
19
basically
what? Sorry.
it talks about how human beings can be numbed enough
Hmm.
to be manipulated.
Yeah, to the, where they don't even care what's going on because uh, they're so easily distracted and want drugs and
Yes.
sex parties and stuff.
Yeah.
1984 is by George Orwell. It came out in 1949, I'm pretty sure. 1984
Okay.
was the year of the future, now 30 years ago. But
Right.
uh, so in this future, the government is called Big Brother, and there's cameras everywhere. Everything you do is recorded. Um, like no one trusts anyone because, like we were talking about earlier, the say something or see something, say something is like drilled into their heads um, to like unify everybody. They go to shoot, what do they call them? Where they just like scream at the Oh, it's called the minute of hate, the minute hate, where they just all get together and hate whoever they're fighting a war with, uh, which constantly gets changed in the news. Like news is rewritten to uh, agree with who's ever in power that day, that week, or whoever they're
Yeah.
fighting a war with. Like, I know there's one part where they say, "Yeah, we've always been fighting a war with Eurasia," and then the main character's job is to like change the news, so he has to go back to all the newspapers and change that to like, we have always been fighting a war with Oceania, which is just like a different country, and everybody accepts it and believes it. um yeah.
Because basically they become numb not because of distractions, they become numb due to fear.
Hmm. Because yeah, there's all the government, Big Brother puts out stories about what happens to people who get caught disobeying the government or anything like that, and they're horrible. And we follow the main character as he gets disillusioned by this and goes against the government, and how that works out. um so yeah, like Miss Connor said, Brave New World says like we'll be distracted enough to be able to hide the truth from us, where um, Orwell says we'll be too scared to try to find the truth. And
Yeah, to question it.
mhm. And this comic strip argues that Brave New World is was more correct. Uh, the last little block of pictures, it says Orwell feared that what we hate will ruin us. Huxley feared that what we love will ruin us. Uh, yeah, that's a really scary thing to think about.
Well, I find myself, like, on a personal level, I find myself falling into kind of the category of Huxley's
Hmm.
group, um, because I try so hard not to be fearful that I end up putting my head in the sand almost.
Hmm.
And I find myself fighting against these two philosophies so much, but I end up choosing Huxley's. Like I end up choosing ignorance sometimes because it is
Easy.
easier on my psyche than to fear and worry and be angry and
Yeah. Like it's a lot better or easy. It's easier to just like throw Netflix on than go protest and go on strike.
yeah.
Like uh which yeah, like I think the governments in both books are terrified of people like banding together and disobeying on a large scale. So you distract everybody individually, and that keeps that from happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I think uh
It makes me feel bad.
yeah, no, totally. Like I've been working on my final project for this entire week, and there's been so many times where I've just been like, how uh I'll get it done. It'll be okay if I procrastinate. I'll go watch TV for right now. And then and like that's on a very very different scale. It's not like societal change, but it's like the same concept of, yeah, if I love just like watching Tiger King over and over. Like that will ruin my life if I do it too much.
Well, it's what I mean, it's what I know a lot of kids do.
Hmm.
Um, if you've got a ton of homework to do or a major assignment that you should be doing, but it's easier to just kind of turn your back to it and focus on something that doesn't matter because it's easier. It doesn't stress you out. It doesn't push you um, closer to a breaking point or anything like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's just kind of human nature to a certain degree. And I think that Huxley is not entirely wrong on that.
Yeah. Like I think that's why it's so easy. Maybe easy is not the right word, but like there are a lot of like drug addicts, alcoholics,
Mm.
anything like that because like once you get drunk or high or something, it's easier to forget about the important things you have to do or the things that are stressing you out or just like life in general.
Yeah, Kennedy says procrastination sucks, and it does, but I still find myself doing it.
Yeah.
It's this weird part of human nature to procrastinate. I wish I was one of those people who didn't procrastinate, who faced things head on.
Hmm.
So often, like I said, I end up quote unquote sticking my head in the sand or
Yeah. Well, yeah, going back to what we were talking about, uh like my fear of trying to do something good and then it turning out like getting so complacent that it's bad. Like I think what Huxley is saying is that the thing the things that society gives us makes it even easier to do that. Like uh no, I'm not gonna go vote today because I'm trying to watch the show. Getting off the couch is too hard. Like I'm tired, anything like that. Like you neglect the important things to do nothing.
yeah, but sometimes it's actually a good thing because like okay, let's use modern society and current situation right now. Like if I allowed myself to only focus on COVID-19 and corona and things that I have no control over, but I could fear them constantly,
Hmm.
or I could go watch Onward because Disney Plus released it early.
Yeah. Which one
You
is,
know,
yeah.
which like to a certain degree is it's intentionally to numb me a little bit, but is that a bad thing?
Yeah. Like, and that's where it gets weird. It's like, everything is relative. Like, yeah,
Yep.
if you spent all of your time just researching COVID-19, getting like hazmat suits or whatever, like, yeah, that would be unhealthy.
Yeah.
But if you watched Onward 600 times in a row because you didn't want to think of anything else, that would also be unhealthy.
It's healthy. And so my stepdad used to say, everything in moderation. The key to life is everything in moderation. And I still try to use that to this day
Hmm.
because I think it's true. I think that you want to put some pressure on yourself,
Hmm.
but you don't too much pressure on yourself. And you want to trust people, but not overly trust people. And there's just like there's always some good and some bad, so you find this middle ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where I'm trying to find the balance.
Uh-huh. And that's tough, man. Like that balance because yeah, like I get dragged down into the easiness of stuff. Like if I can avoid doing anything hard, great. I think that's how most people are. But yeah, like
Right.
my old one of the captains I had, his slogan was slow steady strain. It was like
Oh,
keep yourself a little bit stressed out every day so that you get what you're supposed to get done,
yeah.
but not
So
so
you're
much that you're driving
yourself.
yourself crazy.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep. Everything in moderation,
Yeah.
but push yourself. A
Hmm.
little bit of stress is
Yeah.
good because it keeps you motivated.
Hmm. Yeah.
Hmm.
Like I've been that's so strange that at the end of this week, like for the first time, not the first time, but it's very rare that I don't procrastinate on a paper or a project until the day or two before. And this whole
Right.
week, this whole week I've been doing a little bit every day to the
Whoa, look
yeah,
at you go.
I'm doing what I teach. Can you believe it?
Nice job.
But yeah, like I'm not 100% done yet, but like stressing out for 2 hours every day uh, to get a little bit done so that tomorrow it'll probably be my rough draft for it will be all done instead of tonight going nuts for 6, 7, 8 hours and trying to get it all in.
Yeah, and being totally grumpy and overwhelmed
Yeah.
and well, I think that's just a good philosophy about life,
Mhm.
and I don't know. I mean, I feel a little bit better actually. Now, this is going to be a little cheesy, pardon me. I feel a little bit about these stories having talked about them now than I did before we had our discussion.
Oh yeah.
Because I felt like the thought process was so negative.
Hmm.
It took me to negative places, the thought process did. And I think our conversation has ended, well, kind of ended or come to a point in it where I'm like, okay, it's not all negative. The lesson is once again to find
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah. It's a pretty positive, I think, message overall for us. Like, I think, yeah, I think we both have tried to live like in moderation, do like learn from our mistakes and don't procrastinate or uh, do what we can to make our world and everybody's world a better place
Yeah,
and not get overwhelmed or
yeah,
try.
yeah. And I think I was feeling overwhelmed when I read the stories initially,
Hmm.
but I have to remind myself of the
Yeah.
balance. So yeah, I'm feeling better about the
Well,
stories.
good.
Huzzah, as you would
Huzzah.
say.
Well, I think that's a nice place to end the discussion. I like that.
I think so.
Nice positive note.
Yeah. I don't think there were a lot of, well, I imagine there probably weren't a lot of questions about the story or anything like that because it seemed pretty straightforward. I feel like the details were pretty straightforward. I feel like the message is where
Mm.
the true meaning was there, and we've talked about that.
Hmm. I think like most of the questions for like the questions that I came up to go with the story were um, a lot about like background and like one of them. Do you think anything like this story could happen in in the U.S.? Do you think it's happened in the past? Why do you think that? Um, like hopefully that inspired some of our some of some of the students to go look up to see like, oh, I don't know if that's happened in the US. Maybe I should go check it out. um,
Yeah,
because yeah, it has happened in the US and still happening today to a certain extent. um,
yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
something I wanted to talk about. I one of the questions had to do with the banned book list. And
Mm,
I put up the link to it and wanted to see the different books that uh, our students had read and what were they surprised by. Um, a lot of them have read the Captain Underpants books, which hey, me too. I had no idea they were ever banned.
really? Those are
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. Harry Potter, Twilight, Hunger Games, a bunch of kids books. Let me think. There's a lot of like stuff you would never ever think about. Um, a day in the life of Marlon Bundo. banned and challenged for including LGBTQIA plus content.
Wow.
Oh, The Hate You Give was banned.
I
13,
knew that.
yeah, 13 Reasons Why. Uh,
Yep, I knew that.
Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian.
Yep.
To Kill a Mockingbird, duh.
Kills me, but yeah.
Yeah. And like you go through this list and you like read uh what the reason for some of them, like it just had LGBTQIA plus content. Uh
Clearly, that was it.
yeah, like Captain Underpants perceived to be encouraging disrupting behavior. Captain Underpants and the Sensational Saga of Sir Stinks-a-Lot. I think that's just another book by the same author. Was challenged for including a same-sex couple. So,
Oh yeah.
The Hate You Give, deemed anti-cop and for profanity, drug use, and sexual references. Which,
Yeah. So it's another one of those things where you have to kind of look. I mean, historically, we don't have the same type of censorship that was in the story, but there is still censorship out there.
mm-hmm.
And do you just accept it or and read something different, or do you
Challenge the
question
challengers.
challenges? Yeah, exactly.
Like I was looking through this list and was like, I want to read every single one of these now, but I think that's just my punk rock nature.
Well, they're good too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's the best books. My favorite, Kurt Vonnegut. His most famous book is one of the most banned books. It's called Slaughterhouse Five, and they said
Right?
for profanity, but uh, there was one curse word in it. Um, yeah, so he just didn't really understand. It's an anti-war book while Vietnam was going on. So I think that is a big reason for people.
That's the real reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like it's interesting how many of these books are on here that are about people that are not straight or white or are giving a different perspective than
Yeah.
what is shoved down our throats all the time.
And that is a conversation for another day.
Yeah. Yep, you're right. Yeah. Do anybody have any questions about anything? If you do, post it up on Teams. We can talk about it. Um,
Yeah.
if you haven't already, I would really love to read your responses to the 1984 and Brave New World writing prompt. It's just come up with your own dystopian society. I've gotten a lot of cool ones so far. I'm really digging it.
All right.
Um, should I tell him I got a job?
Yeah, I think you should. I didn't want to be the one. I didn't want to like bust you out and be like, "Hey, Mr. Elster got a
Yeah, I
job,"
got.
but Mr. Job.
Yeah, I got hired at a middle school in Omaha. I'm gonna be teaching 8th grade next year. So if anybody went to King Science Center, hit me up and tell me how it was. They have a planetarium, so I'm stoked about it.
But yeah, you're going to be teaching kids that eventually will be in my class.
Yeah, I'm stoked. Yeah, that would be cool. I'm gonna cause like I'm pretty sure when you're in middle school, like you help them out, like pick classes or whatever.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I'm gonna get all of my kids to go to your class.
There you go. There you go.
Heck yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks. I'm very excited about it. I just need to graduate first.
Yeah, exactly. All
Yep.
right. Well, I think on that note,
We'll see you
I am going to go
later.
have some lunch.
Bye. Have a great day.
Bye,
See you
kids.
Monday.
Bye.
Bye.